fleet leading South Korean warships in drills in the Western Pacific. The Carl Vinson Strike Group arrived in the Korean Peninsula waters on April the 29th and has been holding training exercises with South Korea's Navy. Meanwhile, on Wednesday, the U.S. launched an unarmed Minuteman-3 intercontinental ballistic missile in California. It's the country's second ICBM test within a week. The test struck a target in the Pacific about 6,800 kilometers away.
Washington's strategy is designed to contain and influence China, if possible, and in the extreme, provide a basis for launching a major attack on China. I think the pretext of attacking North Korea is simply an excuse to build up U.S. military capabilities for a nuclear attack. I think the forthcoming elections in South Korea indicate that a majority of South Koreans are opposed to Trump and will probably vote for the Democratic Party, which is opposed to building up the U.S. military capacity to survey and pinpoint China's vital resources and China's defense. I think the defeat of Trump in the forthcoming elections in South Korea will be a very important step. South Korea is not willing to sacrifice itself for U.S. global domination, and that is true also for Asia, where the Philippines and other countries like Thailand are calling into question the U.S. strategy toward China, since they have very important ties. I should add Malaysia to that. So Washington is depending on the military buildup in South Korea, the military buildup in Japan, and Trump's relationship with the Conservative Party in Australia. This is a very dangerous move by Trump because it puts in danger the whole world.
Though tensions between North and South Korea could make the two countries even more divided, much of the South still holds out hope for reunification. RT Simone Del Rosario reports near the demilitarized zone.
Beyond the barbed wire, this Bridge of Freedom is where they released captured soldiers to the other side following the Korean War. Now everything to the north is off limits. The city of Paju, South Korea, is the farthest north South Koreans can go without special government permission. Imjinggak was built to comfort those from both sides of the Korean War, those unable to reconnect with loved ones on the other side.
Each day, hundreds of South Koreans come here to Imjinggak and leave behind ribbons, mementos, and messages. Messages to family members lost in the north, and prayers for peace and hope that one day these two countries will be one again.
Of course, I'm sad because there's like tons and tons of ribbons that's for the people that are left behind, and I hope that they will all meet together one day.
Jeff Kim's hopes are echoed throughout the youngest generation of South Korea, whose families brought them to visit the memorial. The broken bridge, destroyed by the Korean War, is a metaphor for the broken relationship between the North and the South.
We are of the same blood, so I expect a quick reunification of the Korean Peninsula, and we should heal this hurt.
The wounds run deep, like the more than 1,000 bullets that blasted this freight train more than 60 years ago. But still, South Koreans take in the sights and their country's unique history, holding on to hope that one day the fences will fall down. The young Koreans are full of this hope, their only knowledge of the war coming from stories and this visit to Imjinggak. But Kim Ok-soon is from North Korea. She escaped to the south by boat when she was just 5 years old.
All of my family including my parents. We came down to Seoul during the Korean War. We have grandparents left in North Korea, and we don't have any information on whether they're still alive or not.
At Imjingak, she leaves more than a ribbon tied to a post. She leaves a loved one as close as she can to home.
My father just died, so I spread his ashes in the Imjin River, flowing to North Korea. So I'm thinking of North Korea and family, and I am so sad. I am here to recollect those memories.
Kim hopes for reunification too, like most of those visiting the park each day. But she fears North Korea's influence reaching across Freedom Bridge.
I have two minds. On one side, reunification is necessary, but on the assumption that Kim Jong-un might be the leader after reunification, what could be the future for us?
The prospect of a united Korean peninsula is still out of reach, but a new generation can see it in their future. In Paju, South Korea, Simone Del Rosario, RT.
Talk about a bill that was able to garner both Democrat and Republican support in the House. One thing, lawmakers overwhelmingly voting to impose tougher new sanctions on North Korea. This after a top American military officer warned it's a question of when, not if, Pyongyang successfully builds a nuclear missile capable of striking the United States. The measure targets the rogue nation's shipping industry and its use of slave labor. It also requires the Trump administration's report to Congress within 90 days on whether North Korea should be reinstated on our government's list of state sponsors of terror. Such a designation would trigger even more sanctions, including restrictions on U.S. foreign assistance. This is the Pentagon officials now say North Korea and Iran may be sharing dangerous submarine and cruise missile technologies. Yeah, okay, so they're going to buddy up. Is that necessarily breaking news? I mean, they have been on the same page. And oh, by the way, you can throw Russia in there, too.
Well, so
and maybe even Cuba.
So what's key about the sanctions is what's going to be sanctions enforcement and what we're prepared to do, because the banks and the other industries working with North Korea are actually Chinese. And are we going to start sanctioning Chinese banks and Chinese industries that are working with North Korea if they continue? You know, look, North Koreans and Iranians have been working together for years. They're the only two entities that operate this type of submarine that just tried, on the Iranian side, just tried to launch a cruise missile yesterday. The senior official that you mentioned, Admiral Harry Harris, is actually the commander of our Pacific Fleet, Megan's grandfather's old command. And it is if, not when. And as North Korea marches towards being able to miniaturize the nuclear weapon, put it on an ICBM, attack Tokyo and Seoul, if not the western United States, you can bet you they're going to share that with Iran. And on the Iranian side, that's being fueled by the billions of dollars we released through the Iran deal. And they're absolutely in cahoots.
So you're talking about our ability to impose and follow through with these sanctions, but just approving the sanctions themselves, does this further inflame the tensions between us and them?
Well, that's where between us and the North Koreans, look, I think the North Koreans need to understand that the military option is on the table and that it's credible. That's how diplomacy is actually going to work.
They believe it?
But in the meantime, under the Obama administration, they didn't believe it.
No, but it's been said recently. Do you think they believe it?
But in the meantime, there's a lot more we can do with sanctions. There's a lot more we can do with cyber. There's a lot more we can do on the diplomatic front, and we have to exhaust all of those levers because military action on the peninsula will be catastrophic.
Two members of what President Bush once referred to as the axis of evil. U.S. intelligence officials saying that North Korea and Iran may be sharing dangerous military technology. At the center of all this, ballistic missiles, which both nations are banned from developing.
Well, Leland Bittert is live at the Pentagon to give us more on this startling news. Good morning, Leland.
Well, good morning to you, Shannon. Both countries, Iran and North Korea, view ballistic missiles as key to their survival, not only as a way to project force regionally, but to take on the United States itself, possibly be able to fire on the U.S. mainland. We certainly know North Korea wants to do that. Tuesday, Iran tried to test a cruise missile from a midget submarine in the Strait of Hormuz, raising serious eyebrows at the Pentagon because of exactly the design of this midget submarine, which is a carbon copy of the North Koreans' midget submarine. The launch failed, but the submarine is of a North Korean design.
the very first missiles we saw in Iran were simply copies of North Korean missiles. And over the years, we've seen photographs of North Korean and Iranian officials in each other's countries, and we've seen all kinds of common hardware and design approaches.
Well, now, neither country, Iran or North Korea, yet possesses long-range ICBM, Shannon, but defense experts have long warned that whatever North Korea develops, either from its nuclear program or from its missile program, Iran can have for the right price.
Yeah, that's a terribly kept secret, not kept at all. So, Leland, what does the Pentagon propose to do?
Well, it's difficult for military planners here, and earlier this month, a couple of days ago, it was the admiral who was in charge of all U.S. military forces in the Pacific who sounded the alarm bells, really saying the United States and its military planners' hands are tied by a Cold War-era treaty.
We are being taken to the cleaners by countries that are not signatories to the INF.
Now, that treaty forbids the United States from deploying either short or medium-range missiles. Those missiles are things that the North Koreans and the Iranians have by the truckload, Shannon, and obviously they would have no problem using them in a conflict, whether it be around the Straits of Hormuz for Iran or against South Korea, where all those U.S. troops are if the North Koreans went to war.
All right, Leland Vitter, live for us at the Pentagon. Thank you.